go. Basketball fans everywhere, appreciate you for joining me back now for episode, what I believe now is 67 of Tate's Take. You know, we like to call this the best, the most entertaining, the most educational, and the most informational basketball content on the planet in the form of a podcast. Remember, you can subscribe. Remember, tell everybody, tell your friends, tell your enemies, your mama, your grandmama, tell your baby mama, everybody to where to go to subscribe anywhere you find your favorite podcast. And as always, per usual, to follow along on all social media platforms at Tate's Take Hoops, TATES TAKEHOOPS. Hashtag, as you know by now, I'm sure you're tired of hearing it, that is where basketball lives. And without further ado, I told you guys, I teased it a little bit before, that I have a special guest that's going to be joining me. So what better time than right now than the present to bring on my guest? That would be none other than Len Elmore, college basketball analyst, announcer, All-American. Welcome to the show, Len. How are you?
I'm doing well, man. Thanks for inviting me.
Absolutely, it's a pleasure to have you here on the program as well. And I want to open things up with this, if you don't mind. This is the big one. You went here. You were an All-American, obviously an outstanding player. And so I want to touch on this game first, at least briefly. Number 10 seeded Maryland against number 7 seeded UConn. That's going to take place on tomorrow, less than 24 hours away. That's Eastern Standard Time, of course, on CBS in West Lafayette, Indiana at Mackey Arena. What would you consider maybe to be some of the keys to this particular game between Maryland and Connecticut in the first round of the NCAA tournament?
Well, I think its size. Maryland is still kind of undersized. They don't really have a prominent player in the post, not only offensively, but to protect the rim. And, Connecticut, led by James Bouknight, they're slashers. They get to the rim quickly. And so, Maryland's got to do a job of protecting the paint, bodying up on ball handlers and keeping from turning the corner. Flip side, though, is that, UConn's going to have to spread their defense. Maryland likes to spread offensively. They got some bigs like Dante Scott and others who can shoot the three. And that puts a lot of pressure on their bigs. And, of course, we know Eric Ayala is a consistent offensive player, their leading scorer. But the X factor to me is Aaron Wiggins, who, when he's assertive, when he plays that alpha dog role and doesn't defer to anybody, he can take over games. So, I expect it to be a close game. Danny Hurley has always been a favorite of mine. And not only because he's a good coach, because he's so animated. And, Mark Turgeon recognizes that this year, as opposed to last year, when they had, a pretty stacked team, but this year they're obviously undersized, considered an underdog. He's kind of playing with house money. So obviously he can coach a little bit looser. So it's going to be a close game. I think you picked a pretty good one to start with.
Yeah, and I'll say this much for the viewers and even for you, Len, please forgive. I think there's a typo there saying on Thursday, where that game is actually not going to be on Thursday. Nonetheless, I want to see what you make of this, because obviously everybody knows, in terms of specifically being Maryland, having one of those teams this year and the type of season that they're having, dynamic defensive. I mean, they really hunker down and defensive anchor. They hang their hats on the defensive side of the ball. And then even more so for a team like UConn, Bouknight seems to be the guy. That's who everybody keeps talking about. A dynamic scorer, obviously, and very explosive as well. Do you consider, in the event that Maryland has a hard time scoring the basketball, but can certainly defend as good of a job as they do, how much emphasis do you think should or it will be put on Maryland to put the ball in the basket to come away with a victory in this game?
Well, always. I mean, that's still going to be the name of the game. I mean, your consistent defense is about when your offense escapes you from time to time during the course of a game, but you still got to put the ball in the basket. And, Maryland has had difficulty, although some of it is because of tempo control, because, again, they don't have the size to go up and down the floor and rebound with teams. And so, they will try and control tempo and, look to be an efficient offensive team, not necessarily a high-scoring offensive team. But definitely your defense has to be consistent.
Yeah, talking about UConn being one of those teams that I've heard maybe not a ton of people, but certainly more than one person mention that can be a sneaky team that can potentially make a run maybe to the Final Four that nobody's really talking about. Certainly, maybe even the Sweet 16 and so forth. That's obviously going to be a game that will be played in the East region, particularly. Now, one more question for you in terms of Maryland, and I have to be the guy that just has to ask it, I guess. But since you are an alum of the University of Maryland, I have to ask it. What do you make exactly out of, and I'm sure it's really old news by this point, what exactly do you make of, I guess you can call it a dust-up between Mark Turgeon and Juwan Howard that took place earlier in the week?
I got a feeling there's some history there. I think that, both of them gave their stories as kind of subjective justification of why they got mad at each other and started talking smack. But, in the end, it's two coaches that, were kind of jacked up on testosterone, or testosterone, I should say. And, really wanted to, do something to fire up their teams. And, it just got out of hand. I do think Turgeon shouldn't have pointed his finger and started walking towards Juwan, because Juwan said that kind of set off the Chicago in him. But by the same token, Juwan knows better. And, he's the kind of guy that is usually poised, under control. But as I said, the game itself and the fact that everybody was so jacked up for it kind of let their best get away from them. And they both were sorry. They both apologized to their teams because they know they're role models for the players, and the players model after them. I don't suspect anything like that happens again, but in the heat of battle, that's what occurred, and they both were wrong.
Yeah, they are actually in the same region. Michigan Wolverines being the #1 seed. Who knows? Could be meeting up again. For I think maybe the fourth time that time around in the event that happens. And that if in the event that happens, that would be something that would take place, I believe, in the Elite Eight in the event that we get to that point. Len Elmore joining us, college basketball analyst, announcer, and All-American, an attorney, I believe, if I'm not mistaken, as well.
Yeah, I got my law degree in 1987, 3 years after I retired from the league, and started practicing law in that same year. I went back to my hometown, Brooklyn, New York, joined the district attorney's office after recognizing, as a public defender in Boston and as third-year student, that I could have more positive impact on the community by, assuming that role. And I tried misdemeanors and felonies for several years. And then my last year and a half, I spent prosecuting police misconduct. So, I've had a range of experience, as a lawyer. And then I went into private practice. Also used, what I learned and used the method of thinking that law school helps you with, and use that as a businessman, having led several small companies, including a company that was a joint venture of the NBA and the NCAA called iHoops, which was looking to transform youth basketball. Unfortunately, that was the baby of Miles Brand, who ultimately passed away. The NBA didn't seem really interested in the absolute mission of it, and it kind of fell apart.
Well, I wanted to make sure that I mentioned that part as well as an attorney, regardless of when it was at that time. I want to make sure I give you a congratulations on that. That's something that's obviously always something that is a very big deal, especially times of need and such of the days that we're living in right now. I want to kind of keep it moving and going forward. Let me ask you this. Are you filling out a bracket? Do you fill out a bracket, Len?
Of course.
Okay.
I don't always show it to people, but but I have one.
I want to ask you this before we get into the meat. There it is. There's the answer key. We're going to call that the answer key. Before we get into the meat and potatoes, or I guess the nuts and bolts of that, um, how far do you got Maryland going on your bracket? Just curious.
I got them beating Connecticut, but they just can't get past Alabama.
Okay. Okay. I had to get that one
I'm a
in there.
realist.
Okay, I respect that. I respect that. Now this is another one I have for you. Are you a one bracket guy or are you a multiple bracket guy?
When I start filling it out, I can't stop. So I'm all the way to the final game. I haven't picked the winner of the finals, although I suspect who I'm going to go with. So
Okay.
no, and I only do one bracket. I don't fill multiple ones. And in fact, I try to be the honorable bracketologist that when I finish my bracket, I take a picture of it so it's time stamped, and everybody knows that I filled it out before the game started.
I was gonna say that's very important because I see some of those people still trying to fill out their brackets in pencil, and I'm like, nah, we not doing that. We not breaking out the mechanical pencils where you're doing this all day long. I want to ask you this question, play a little bit of fill in the blank with you here. And I'll read it twice just to give you a little bit of time in case you need to think about it. Nobody's talking nearly enough about blank. It would be a surprise to everyone else, but not to me if they made a run to the Final Four or the national championship. And I'll read it one more time. Nobody's talking nearly enough about this team. It would probably surprise everyone else, but it would not surprise Len Elmore if they made a run to the Final Four or won a national championship. Who would that one team be?
um, it's hard to pin it down to one team. I've got like three teams that I could
That's
probably
fine.
say.
Feel free. It can be
Um,
three.
I think Alabama. I think Ohio State, and I think Houston. Those are three teams that have tremendous offenses, particularly Houston and Alabama. Ohio State is a solid team, a veteran team. They don't always score, but they're capable of scoring a lot of points. But they play solid defense, and I like, having watched them during the Big Ten tournament. I like the fact that they've played in close game situations. They know how to come back, but they also know how to keep a lead, even if they blow it after a period of time. So, and those are all things that are going to happen at some point or another during the course of this tournament. But Alabama and Houston can be explosive. So, I've kind of picked those two teams, and we'll see where it goes as far as answering that particular fill in the blank.
Alabama, Houston, Ohio State, all three, ironically or coincidentally enough, number 2 seeds in the NCAA tournament as well. And I really like that Houston one. I got that one on my bracket as well. I want to move forward to, we like to call this chalkboard question of the day, in which I was going to go with the new school dry erase stuff, but people make fun of me. I still tuck in my sweatshirts and everything, or T-shirts and everything. So I'm going to go old school, and I'm going to do chalkboard. So we're going to use chalkboard question of the day in one. Typically, it would be in one word, but let's take in one word out. Let's just say, which Cinderella team or teams do you think are poised for to make it out of the first round, maybe get to the Sweet 16, perhaps, and maybe make a run at getting a win or two underneath their belt?
Ooh, right
Not
now,
Georgetown, not Georgetown though.
no,
Georgetown, I'm thinking more low major, mid major.
no, I'm not saying Georgetown. I got Drake.
Okay.
I'm looking at my bracket right now, and I have Drake, which is got to go in the playing game. They got to beat Wichita State. I'd say play-in, but it's called the first four, and I should know better. But nevertheless, if they get by Wichita State, I think they have a good chance. I got them beating Kansas, getting to the Sweet 16.
And that's going to be a game that will be actually played in the next 24 hours or so, taking place in the first four. And I'm glad that you said that, because every time I say play-in game, where my former employer was at a CBS radio affiliate, would always say, Deshaun, I know we're giving you your first couple cracks on the air, but one thing you can't do, you got to get out of the habit of saying play in. It's first four. So it instantly took me back when you
Yeah.
said first four, I should know better and so forth or whatever. Let me ask you this one. Let's keep moving here. I hear a lot of talks about all these positive things, all these optimistic things. I get it. They're unbeaten, they're undefeated, and so forth. Talking about the Gonzaga Bulldogs, who have the #1 overall seed in the NCAA tournament. But I don't hear nearly enough about some of the weaknesses and/or concerns for Gonzaga. Do you see any that sticks out there? Because I know not too long ago, sometime last week, they were down at the half to BYU until they stormed back in the second half. What says you?
I think that maybe some jitters, recognizing they're entering this tournament undefeated. I would hope that Mark Few would show them that UMBC Virginia tape to get them motivated, and to recognize that teams, you can get down during the course of a game and you can't panic. And I think that's what happened to Virginia. And if Virginia wasn't constructed to come back, they're a terrific defensive team, but they didn't really have outstanding offensive teams. So they didn't have guys that they could rely on to put points on the board. Gonzaga has that. They've got that, and they've got more. So that is one thing I think that they might be concerned with. And, the other could just be the law of averages, where they play one of these games and it's just not their day. Other than that, though, to me, they're the strongest team in the field. They have depth, they have quality coaching, they have experience, and, quite honestly, their starting five is as good as any starting five in America.
That makes for a very good point, and I want to move across the board here now to talking about something that happened over the course of the last couple of days, where we will have March, I guess, without Arch. Archie Miller is out now as the head coach of Indiana. And I had an opportunity to bring Dan Dockich on last week, picked his brain a little bit. Jay Billis came on, I picked his brain a little bit. Now it's Len Elmore's turn. Let me ask you, who do you feel like could be amongst the names on the list of the most ideal head coaching candidates to maybe fill that void at IU, at such a prestigious and traditional historical basketball program?
Well, I could say that from what I recall, and I could be wrong, but the last time they went to the Final Four, Mike Davis was coaching them. I don't know if Mike could get a chance to come back, but no, I mean, look, there's so many quality coaches out there. They say they're trying to get Brad Stevens. Brad Stevens doesn't want any part of it, and I can understand that. Coaching in the NBA not only is more lucrative, but less headaches. You don't have to go out. You don't have to get on the recruiting trail. You're supposed to be dealing with adults, although that's questionable sometimes in the NBA. But they talk about Rick Pitino and Rick, who, I've known Rick since he was an assistant coach with the Knicks when I played. Rick Pitino says he doesn't want the job, and to me, that usually says that he does. So, but I think that the athletic department, in making a decision, if they want to stay in house, they want to stay with somebody who can regain the culture of Hoosier basketball. You go to Indiana, and I played for the Pacers for 5 years, and they'll pretty much tell you they invented basketball. So they are of the mindset that they're supposed to be on top year after year after year. Now they should recognize it's going to take a while, and if they come to grips with the fact that it takes a while to build culture, why not give one of their own an opportunity? And I'm talking about Calbert Cheaney.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I know that the name Calbert Cheaney has came up, and this is just me proposing the question just to random people and what they thought. I'm not sure exactly if Steve Alford may be, potentially interested, or maybe even throwing a name out there like Chris Beard, perhaps from Texas Tech, who's got some roots over there at IU as well. My last one here is we're going to talk a little bit.
Well, let me just say real quick,
Sure,
Deshaun, a lot
sure.
of those are the usual suspects.
Yes,
And,
yes.
we recognize that they have a chance. I do believe, though, when you look at the Big Ten, they've got one now. They just hired a coach of color at Penn State. I think that you've got to give some consideration from that standpoint. And Calvin Chaney being a Hoosier, tried and true, and know that you have time to build a program. Why not?
No, that makes perfect sense. And I'm not sure exactly where Calbert Cheney has been, just because, as much of a basketball hoop head as I am, I was even kind of surprised by it myself, but just kind of curious as to know, well, what has he done lately in terms of coaching? Not saying he has to have had any of that experience as of later, major level experience per se, but certainly it would be a great thing for it to at least be considered for the job, considering the fact that I think he's is he the all-time Big Ten leader in scoring, I think?
He might be. No, in the Big Ten, he could be. I'm not positive of that, but Calvert was he's an assistant with the Pacers, I believe. So he's right there, 40 minutes from the campus. Look at the success Michigan has had with Juwan Howard, a former assistant who is now coaching his alma mater. That can be replicated. Why not give it a chance?
No, I totally agree with you. The last one I have for you here before we conclude, because I don't want to take up too much of your time. It says here, from the barn to the pit. And obviously, we're talking about head coaches. You mentioned Rick Pitino, his son, and Richard Pitino, going in, I guess, less. And I guess I would definitely get your thoughts on it. Going from a job in which the dismissed from Minnesota as the head coach in less than 24 hours, now getting the job at New Mexico, where they play at the Pit. Just what is your overall take on that particular hire? Maybe how he fits in, or how that whole thing came about in terms of just that quick turnaround of a hire for somebody like a Richard Pitino, because everyone's going to be so quick to say, oh, well, the name that comes behind it and so forth. Well, should we kind of expect for maybe Archie Miller to get a job in the next 24 to 48 hours? Maybe I'm not going to go that far, but just kind of want to get your overall thoughts.
Richard Pitino is an excellent coach. I mean, he's had good teams at Minnesota. No, they haven't gotten over the hump. They've had some issues. I think I think it was last year or the year before, when he had a quality team, he had his leading rebounder and one of his leading scorers winds up getting suspended and no longer able to play. Obviously, this year with COVID, they start out tremendous, but then they lose their big man in the middle, Robbins. They lose one of their best defenders and a terrific three-point shooter in Kalsher, they finished the season on a downstroke, so to speak. Still were competitive, almost won their first game, coming back to win, almost to win in the first game of the Big Ten tournament. So, to me, I think that he's had enough time in Minnesota. They wanted to go in a different direction, but his team's won games. He has demonstrated that he can coach and has been a quality coach. And yeah, he got out before he was pushed out essentially. And he's got a good agent that helps a lot. So I think you can start a new program. Start fresh in a place like New Mexico, and roll the dice there. That's kind of part of the revolving door, and not to take anything away from Richard Pitino's capabilities, because as I said from the outset, he's a terrific coach. However, some guys get those opportunities and, to jump from one place to another, even though you're seemingly on your way out, and others don't. That's the way we are today in coaching hires, particularly in college sports.
60 seconds real quick, Len. What's on the menu at the Elmore household when it comes to the bracket first day? This thing's going to be exciting. Everybody's talking about March Madness. You're sitting back. What's on the menu? What's Len Elmore consuming when it comes to March Madness and watching some of these games?
Well, based on the timing of the games, some of them are going to be played in the afternoon and stuff. It'll start out with a green juice with blueberries and some papaya and some other stuff like that. And then it'll ultimately kind of descend towards maybe wings. Who knows what else? Ribs, a Subway sandwich. I don't know. I mean, we'll see how I feel. I'm at the age now where I just can't be eating anything. I
Yeah,
try to
yeah.
stay in pretty good shape. So it'll be relatively healthy, but sometimes, like I said, it can get decadent. It all depends if my wife is watching or not.
I got you. I got you. That's the key. Look at that smart man right there. Real quick before we get up out of here, because we're right up against it for sure. I got to make sure I send a shout out to one of my buddies, man. Great guy. Kind of helped put us together. Todd Quarter saying I love his answer on Mike Davis, and I love his answer on Rick Pitino. That was awesome. So I want to give some credit to Todd TC because he definitely helped and assisted me with putting this whole thing together. And so while he may love so much of your answers, I hope you don't think you love him more than I do, Len, because I love that dude. That's a great guy right there. And I can say as much as I can about you as well. Len Elmore, college basketball analyst, announcer, and All-American. Remember to give him a follow on social media, particularly on Twitter at Len Elmore. That is at LenElmore, one of the greats that's ever played this game, and certainly as well behind that microphone with the headsets on. And love listening to you calling games. It's a pleasure and an honor to be able to bring you on this platform and on this program.
Yeah, the pleasure was mine, man. Thank you very much. Good luck with this show. Obviously, you deserve to have the viewers. It was a lot of fun.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate it. And you enjoy the rest of your day and enjoy the tournament.
All right, will do.
Sounds good. That there just happens to be Len Elmore. And of course, we thank him for coming on and joining us, joining the show. And as we get ready to somewhat abruptly end the show, as we are getting ready to maneuver on to doing some different things for the rest of the day, I think we got somebody else lined up today. Let's go through the Rolodex right now, just so I can give you guys at least a little bit of a feel for who's coming up later on today. Because I know we got somebody else. Who we got? And let me see, 6:30. Okay, so we're on Eastern Standard Time, by the way. 6:30 Eastern Standard Time. Ken Segura, the beat reporter and writer for the Atlanta Journal-Constitution for Georgia Tech men's basketball. We're going to pick his brain a little bit on the Jackets, talk a little bit about the COVID testing, that the news that broke on just yesterday. They've got a 8-9 seed matchup, I believe, in the Midwest with Loyola Chicago, that I would imagine would be kind of tough. Sister Jean's in town as well. So we're going to talk about that, break that down. The winner likely to go on. I say likely to go on and play Illinois in the second round. So it should be every bit of interesting. Appreciate everybody for joining. Remember to subscribe anywhere you find your favorite podcast. It's called Tate's Take. Don't save it for the local barbershops. Don't save it for the local sports bars. Also, be sure to subscribe to your friends, tell your enemies, tell your mama, tell your grandmama, tell your baby mama, tell everybody where they can find the best, the most entertaining, the most educational, and the most informational basketball content on the planet in the form of a podcast. It's called Tate's Take, and it's where basketball lives. Follow along on Twitter at Tate's Take Hoops, TATESTAKEHOOPS, where basketball lives. Give me about 30 good minutes, and we're going to be bringing in Ken Segura from Georgia Tech. I promise you it's going to help you a ton with your bracket when it comes to that matchup. See you guys in 30.